Skid Row and what else was Kiss? Kiss was obviously quite a bit of that.
Wow.
Kind of a glam rock type stuff. That, it was our early lessons in a cover band.
Yeah, it was good times though.
Very
and we actually got to relive the magic a little bit recently. I was back in town, and Chad's band was playing, so I actually got up and did a few songs, and I was pretty rusty, but I had a blast.
Yeah, it was
Oh,
good.
that's awesome.
So Derek, I was going to ask, so when after that you kind of took a turn from what tell us a little bit about your musical journey and where that's taken you. And
Sure. Yeah, so I left high school, went off to college, and joined a band there as well, and we played throughout. I guess it was my freshman year of college. I joined the band or started the band, and we played all the way through for 5 or so years, and that was sort of the first. That was sort of my first foray in actually like songwriting and stuff. I mean, I did a little bit of that in high school, but we mostly just played covers. So we actually, we released one album independently and did some touring and stuff like that. But I think that's also when I realized like I probably wasn't going to be a professional musician. And I'm not sure I was completely built for it, but I also got very passionate about the business side from sort of, for lack of a better word, managing our band. Got really into the marketing side. Like I kind of enjoyed going out and hanging up band flyers more than I actually enjoyed getting up and playing. So awesome. I was like, oh, and up to that point, it hadn't even really dawned on me that, I mean, I obviously knew somewhere in the back of my head that there were people out there who were behind the scenes of the music industry, but I didn't know what any of them were called or what they did, or other than what I read inside album covers, So I was like, I'm going to go do that. I want to go work in the music business. So I took an internship in New York City at a little label called Grand Slam Records, which is mostly known for putting out the first White Lion album. But other than that, they didn't put out a ton of big records. So I did an internship there. And then as soon as I graduated college, I just got right in my car and drove to Los Angeles and lived there for about 10 years and got my first job, entry-level position at EMI, and spent the next 8 years there and kind of moved up the ladder. After working at EMI, I went over to an independent label called Tooth and Nail Records, spent 5 years there, and then kind of got laid off right around the time that the internet was sort of breaking the music industry, or at least the sales of CDs. And that's kind of when I had moved to North Carolina by that point. And I was like, I had a good run in the music industry. It's changing and kind of becoming something that I'm not as into as I used to be. So maybe I'll just find something else that I love, just as much, and do that. So I miss it sometimes, but at the same time, I feel like I got it at exactly the right time for me. I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much as I did for the first 15 years for the next 15 years. But at the time, it was the most amazing job I've ever had. So yeah, it was, like I said, just kind of switch to the business side. I did play in a band for a little while in Los Angeles called Killing Bird. Spent some time touring with that band as well, but that was mostly the guys who I'd played with in college. So it was just sort of an excuse for us to keep jamming. We had a really good time doing it, but that eventually ended too. And now I can barely hold a guitar for 20 minutes without my back getting sore. So I just sit in my chair and play poker now.
Well, Chad, how did you go from those initial forays into cover bands and stuff into evolving your act today, which is a lot rootsier? And
well, I had kind of continued on playing in what would be deemed cover bands for my early 20s, and then after the birth of my daughter, I kind of slowed things down quite a bit, and I wasn't playing in any bands until maybe into my daughter might have been around 10 years old, and then I started getting offers from local groups in the area to start performing again. So I had really missed it, so I started to perform with local bands, and then I got tied in with an outlaw country group that was gaining quite a bit of popularity at least in the Midwest. And I did that for roughly 6 years, 7 years. And then on my daughter's, I decided to leave that group, and I really wanted to focus on my daughter's senior year school. And so I had left that group and then began to put together ideas for my own group. I had never actually had my own group per se. And so this is the first time I've ever been like in an outing under my own banner. So
when you did that, you're not leading bands, and all of a sudden you are leading bands. What were some of the things you had to put together or plan to make it successful? And then how did you even decide what you wanted to do when it's your own thing?
Well, I had already kind of a reputation in the Midwest for playing with this other group, and I had what I decided. I was kind of actually fed up with with touring around, missing a lot of opportunities, or not opportunities, but I was missing a lot of things with my daughter, and I just wanted to make sure that I was home, and just to make sure that I didn't miss out on the really good stuff that you can't repeat on. So I wasn't actually going to start playing at all until she graduated, and my drummer, as soon as I left the other group, I had flown over to Finland to see my, at the time, fiance. And I said I was kind of done. I was going to take a break. I said, I don't want to do this anymore. And lo and behold, he kept kind of sending me messages. What are you going to do? You can't stop. You got to keep this ball rolling. Mm-hmm. So I decided, what was important to me was basically just becoming myself. And so the plan was to just keep doing what I was doing. I already had a very large amount of contacts. I had a good reputation with a lot of the different venues and stuff. And I basically had to reach out and do things, or to say that it's just me now. And I've had quite a bit, not a lot of success. The first year of running the group, it kind of took a little bit of time to get the momentum going. And then once the ball started rolling, and 2020 was really starting to become a banner year, and I was getting back into where I was previously, it hit the brakes with this COVID-19 pandemic. So I've already lost, I believe, we got 3 months. I've only been going like month to month. I've gotten March canceled. I've had, the April canceled. Now in May's canceled. June's gigs, I haven't touched base with anything yet, but so that's where I kind of sit right now.
So Derek, if I went to the label and I wanted to get an album made and I wanted to call it Fiance from Finland, do you think they would buy it?
I think that would work. Yeah.
It's like maybe a hardcore punk album or something. No, yeah. Where you're talking, I was just thinking about that. Sorry. But
that'd actually be a good band name too.
Yeah, that would be cool. So Chad, are you what are you doing to kind of like compensate for like during your time?
Well, during the time,
I have a question for Chad on that.
So I have to keep like in contact with my fan base. I've been doing weekly shows on Wednesday and on Friday. On Wednesday, I do kind of a midweek breakup. It's about 20 minutes long. I call it Wild Man Wednesday. And it's basically just me kind of, it's me and my guitar and my mouth, I guess. And I just kind of just play, sing, hopefully put a smile on a few people's faces. And like I said, it's therapeutic for me, and it kind of breaks up the week a bit. Now on Friday, I have the Chad Borgen Collective. And what I've been doing is I've been kind of reaching into the archives of my mind and just playing anything and everything that I can remember from my youth up until now. It's about an hour and a half long, and I kind of share stories. I play the guitar and I sing.
Now, I noticed that as a lot of musicians are looking for any kind of revenue play when the gigs go bye-bye, of course, and the merchandise goes bye-bye and everything else goes bye-bye, that you've put a kind of like a PayPal tip jar on the Wild Man Wednesdays and the Fridays as well. Is that something that is helping, or is it something you need to develop more?
It actually is. It is helping, and it's been very successful. A lot of kind people have reached out and have made donations or tips, and I actually am sold out of all my T-shirts and my merchandise that I did have. So that's been rather a good blessing. And now it's just like what do I invest in? How much? Because merchandise I kind of developed and I was developing for the other group as well. But I look at it as kind of like what will I do for 2020? And it's specific for the year. So I'm really not sure what I'm going to do right now, investing into that aspect.
Hey,
so go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead, Matt. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say one thing that occurred to me in the past day or two. I've seen all these Venmo and PayPal deals where they everyone puts their links and they're playing music, and a lot of people that I'm talking to are saying, we're actually not doing too bad with that. And what I was thinking is this the death of crowdsourcing like Kickstarter? Or crowdfunding like Kickstarter and all that's Indiegogo? Because now I always wondered why artists went through all these platforms. It's like they didn't feel like they could do it themselves, but really it's kind of taking away the illusion that you need someone else to do that for you. So has that thought occurred to you at all?
Yeah, somewhat, because now in my isolation, I guess you call it, I've been going through all the archives of the various songs that I've recorded probably over the last 20 years of recording, and just home recording stuff, nothing professional, but going through all these archives and then saying this stuff is really good. I wonder if, like you said, maybe like to ask people to help out and fund a record.
Well, I'm going to tell you that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm getting my first album done right now, and I'm working on it. And through all of this, I've done 2 Kickstarters, and I failed at both of them. I almost got one of them done, right? And this was probably 5 years ago. And I had a little bit of social media success back then. And so I was thinking that, like right now I have a little bit of money, but I don't want to, we don't know what the future holds right now. So I don't want to spend what little money I have. I'm limited on how I can make income right now. So maybe I'm going to start doing some things out there and try to build interest in getting this record finished. And then maybe I can just get it all done in the next 2 months of lockdown, and who knows? So that's exactly what I'm going to do.
It's probably
Eric.
Yeah, go ahead.
We've had a lot of discussion, of course, on how the COVID-19 thing has decimated the earning potential for musicians. But, you've moved into 2 different businesses, it looks like, the poker side of things and Lone Rider Spirits. So just to kind of put things in perspective for us, what's it like for you in a different business during this upheaval?
Yeah, it's been really interesting. So from a poker side, I play primarily online poker. So there's sort of 2 sides to the story of what's happening right now. Online poker is actually booming. It's as big as it's been in a good decade because there's so many people stuck at home trying to find something to do. And a lot of people have apparently turned to online poker because the numbers that they're getting online are so much bigger. And a lot of these people aren't particularly good because they don't play all the time. So it's a really great time to be a professional online poker player. But on the other hand, the live side has been, much like, touring and concerts and stuff has been affected. It's just been decimated. I mean, every casino is closed. We have our biggest event of the year, the World Series of Poker, which usually kicks off mid to late May. That hasn't officially been canceled yet, but I can't fathom a world where it ever happens, at least not this year. And there are a lot of people who played primarily live poker. So they essentially went from, having a job one day to being out of work the very next day. And that's tough professional poker players don't have insurance. They don't have all these some of the safety nets that you have in a regular job. Mm-hmm. So it's been tough. On the distillery side, it hasn't been too bad for us yet. Because in North Carolina, where we are, our liquor stores were deemed essential businesses. So they're still open, and that's where we do most of our business. It has impacted us a little bit because, we also sell to bars and restaurants and stuff. They're closed, so it's hit us a little bit. But we also have a sister brewery, which actually has a tasting room and a bar in it, and that's really hurting, of course. So there were a lot of breweries and distilleries who were probably just close to breaking even anyway before all this happened. I think we'll see a lot of them probably go under due to this. I don't think there's enough money in that stimulus package to save every brewery. So it's been really tough. Not to mention, by nature, people who work in the spirits industry are like outgoing social people. They're at bars, they're at restaurants, they're hanging out, having cocktails with people. And all of a sudden you're in your house going insane because you can't step outside. So we're struggling with the financial aspect and the mental health aspect. I
didn't think about that because, I'm sure everywhere, not only just Northern California, and I don't drink, so I'm the worst guy to talk about this, but, a bunch of the craft beer thing is even the craft spirits thing, as it's kind of boomed the last few years. And but what you mentioned is, like, I guess unless you were already pretty well established, some of these smaller breweries are at risk of not surviving this crisis.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting is the wrong word, I guess, but I'll use it anyway. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Like, I don't know how many bars, restaurants, breweries, distilleries, those sort of like service industry businesses, I don't know what percentage are going to go down, but it's got to be a lot of them. I mean, it's just, you just can't stay open. And I started to see things today about, they kind of talked about, maybe we'll be open by mid-April, maybe it's the end of April. Then it was kind of like, well, maybe late May. I saw a thing today saying that we won't probably return to completely normal until fall of 2021. Which is insanity to me. Yeah. I can't even fathom. Yeah. I'm going to find some new hobbies because I'm going to be in trouble.
So what you're saying is, if I started drinking beer again, it would just be a public service.
Exactly. Just make sure you buy local beer.
I also had a question. I'm probably the worst guy to talk to you, Derek, except that I did do a little homework. But because I don't gamble either. But when you for your poker business and the online poker, is if I'm, like you said, I'm somebody who loves playing poker, I can't go out of the house, I can't go to casinos, so I'm gonna go online now. Mm-hmm. Is it something where I find you, or I find other players, or there's like an online casino that I would log into? How would I get to play someone like you?
Yeah, there's basically different online casinos that you can join. You just make a deposit, with your credit card or Bitcoin or whatever your preferred method is. And there's just thousands of people there waiting, much like if you walked into a casino and sat down at a regular poker table. It's pretty much like that. You just walk in, hit the register button, and you're good to go.
But you actually have a name, though. So how do you negotiate that?
Yeah, so I only play tournaments, which essentially means I join a tournament and I get randomly seated at a table. So for me, it's a little bit different. I don't get to choose who I'm playing with or where I'm sitting or anything like that. But you can do that. So in fact, last night, the guys who I usually play in a friendly neighborhood poker game with, we all got together on Zoom, much like we're doing right now, and we just all sat down at the same table together and we played poker and had some beers and chatted and talked crap to each other. So there is that alternative option. It's just not what I happen to do.
Do you get to look at each other when you're playing like this?
No, there was a website that actually explored that with using webcams and stuff, but it was just too much of a there was too many issues with people doing things on camera that were not appropriate. So they
Well, what
kind
I
of
was thinking about, like we were talking about glasses and how when you wear glasses, you get a little glare in it. You could actually create a digital overlay to put like the wrong cards on your glasses and trick people. That would be sweet. I would do. I'm like a hacker. I would do stuff like that. So, Derek, let me ask you. I know you worked at EMI for a while in Tooth and Nail, and artist development is something that is kind of a mystery to me from the label's perspective. I've never really talked to an artist development person before, and nowadays artists are pretty much responsible for, like, if you're not making it, it's your own fault. You can't blame anybody. You can't blame the label. You can't. So like, what is artist development from a record label's perspective, or at least from your experience, and how has it changed now that artists are more responsible for that themselves?
Sure, yeah. So I worked primarily on the retail and digital side of artist development. So for us, a lot of that, and this is how the business has changed, and from the time I went into it to the time I came out and to now. At the time, that was very much focused on working with independent record stores, because they were the ones that would bring your record in. You couldn't call up Best Buy or Target and say, hey, we have this new band coming out. They're probably going to sell 500 records the first week, but would you mind bringing in their album? Because they just won't. They don't have enough shelf space. So we would work primarily with independent record stores and lifestyle shops, things like, barber shops or skate shops, things like that, to sort of build the story around an artist. What's happened, in my opinion, from now kind of being an outsider looking in, like you said, that's become much more the responsibility of the artist, particularly with the use of social media channels and the internet as a whole. But it also, the internet has allowed artists to, or I should say fans or potential fans, to be so much closer to an artist, not necessarily physically, but in terms of how much they can learn about an artist. I think back to when me and Chad were buying records in high school. We pretty much just would like read about a band in a magazine, and then maybe 6 months later the record would finally come out and we could actually maybe go to the store and it might be there. Now you know exactly when it's coming, and in fact you could buy it in advance and it'll just show up in your iTunes the next morning. So it's such a much more intimate process now, as opposed to back then when you were trying to essentially reach people when you didn't have a way where you could just communicate directly to them. You couldn't just put up a Facebook post and take an ad out on Instagram or whatever and reach 1 million people. So it's so it's changed a lot, but I still think the process is somewhat the same. It just sits in somebody else's lap now, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Do you think that as far as working with different smaller retail outlets and stuff, that's still a valid strategy for artists to go after?
I mean, I think so. There are still, it's amazing how few, but there are still some really good, independent record stores out there. But I do think that you need to still, even for a newer artist, you still need to put the majority of your time and energy into the social media side and into digital platforms. Although, I will say this too, there's a huge boom now, a resurgence for vinyl. So, something that a lot of artists might not even be thinking about is that along with putting something out digitally, they might want to think about putting out, 1,000 copies of a record, like a literal record.
Have you done that, Chad? Have you done vinyl yet?
No, I haven't done vinyl yet.
Yeah, I've heard that it's there's kind of a backlog because there's only a limited amount of vinyl production facilities. And like the last time I checked, which was a couple years ago, there was like at least a 6 months to a year wait before you could get it pressed. I don't know, Michael, have you been dealing with that at all?
Well, some of the bands I work with to put out vinyl releases and in small numbers, but yeah, the vinyl releases are outselling the downloads or CD sales at a venue. And I think most of the bands I've worked with before this COVID thing happened, they kind of got in right before that pressing plant burned down, which took out a ton of the available vinyl that manufacturers were using. So you're right, it may be hard to do now just because the materials aren't available. But before that, you could still, if you had everything ready to master and ready to go, you could get vinyl. You could be selling vinyl at a venue within a month, pretty much. But yeah, I haven't checked the news lately, so I don't know how much this fire is going to affect bands doing vinyl moving forward.
And I think the research that I was doing at the time, it said that the machines that press the vinyl, that there's no one that manufactures them anymore. So that may have changed, which I'm going to research that and try to put out some info on that. But I'm thinking like a rich guy that is wants to take over a market. Like I wonder what the strategy would be if you could get an investor to buy a vinyl production company for you and take over the market for yourself. Like think it big.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Third Man Records put in a small vinyl facility. I mean, I don't think it cost. I'm having a senior moment with Mr. Third Man. Somebody help me out here.
Jack White.
Yeah, Jack White. So.
Oh yeah, I think I remember hearing about that.
He's got kind of a boutique pressing plant at Third Man. Might not have cost him too much, and I'm sure he's doing fine. I'm sure he's pressing everything he can. Getting into a big operation like Rainbow used to be in Los Angeles, which has since closed down, that's quite an investment. And if you were a businessman, you might go, well, is this a trend or is this a long, are we going to be back to vinyl now and it's going to be worth it? But but definitely for artists looking for another way to kind of break through the distortion of everybody out there hawking their wares, so to speak. Vinyl does seem to be a good way to have that one additional push to reach fans.
Yeah. And, also kind of going back to what you guys were talking about earlier with crowdfunding and stuff, I think bands and artists are also starting to get a little more creative with that. It kind of used to be a thing where it was like, I'm trying to raise 10 grand or whatever. Please donate $10 and you'll get a copy of the CD when it's done. Mm-hmm. Or you might get like a poster or a T-shirt or something too. But I still stay in touch with a lot of the bands that I used to work with, and one of them is incredibly successful with doing effectively a subscription service for their music. So they release an EP every 3 months, and it automatically goes to the people who subscribe, and then one full-length album a year. And basically all the fans just subscribe to it for, I don't know what the price is, say $29.95 a month or something. And they just consistently get new music all the time. And that's great for a band from the band side, because now all of a sudden you have consistent income that's predictable. You can say, we make this much a month from our subscription service. So, it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, we got to go on the road. I'm out of money. I can't pay my rent anymore. I got to go get some gigs,
Here we go. Check it out.
Oh, yeah.
So this is a company, actually in 2015, they started producing these, and it's called New Built. Maybe we could get this guy on the show. This would be cool. The guy that owns this company. It looks like it's by phone, so it looks like it's an overseas company.
Yeah, some of that. Well, I know a lot of the CD pressing is overseas, but that actually sounds like that subscription model sounds awesome, because I know that the whole crowdfunding thing got really wacky for a while, where I saw bands, hey, give us $1,000 and we'll have dinner with you, or play a concert in your home, or give us $5,000 and the van that we went on tour with is yours. We'll sign it over to you. There's all these weird value adds. And then I noticed, at least up here in Northern California, there were a significant amount of bands that kind of went, that crowdfunding thing just seems, I'm not saying this is for everybody. It's just, I'm just quoting an apocryphal story here. It just seems so lame to ask people for money, and then we got to owe them something. And do something for them, and I just don't want to do that. But the subscription thing actually sounds like that's pretty awesome, because you're just basically, if you love the band, you're getting the music like you'd be getting a magazine, or
Well, you can even do box subscriptions, like you can see like the man box, and it's got like shaving equipment and like whiskey samples and beef jerky and things like that, right? You could have a Borgen box and make your own kind of like, based around your brand, go get some products and find some cool stuff like out there on the internet, and that you could get for a reasonable price, and then build your own boxes. That would be cool. The Borgen box. That's good marketing.
That is pretty cool. I like that. The Borgen box.
Well, you've certainly got the time to plan, Chad. So
definitely
look forward to how you're going to promote your music moving through this crisis. Have you developed any strategies, whether it's,
Well, one of the things that I decided that I was going to do was I was going to put out I wasn't going to sit around and do nothing. So a lot of what I've been doing right now is either we've been coming up with ideas for like, I always like to have humor along in the show. So we've been developing some videos that we're going to start putting out that are basically promotional for the Wild Man Wednesday and the Collective Friday. I've been also in developing an outreach program also for people that may be suffering from like depression and maybe suicidal thoughts and stuff during this time as well. And I would say that's probably about it. New music, of course. I mean, music is the what drives me to do what I'm doing. So I have a lot of music that's in the works that I'm finishing up, all recorded in my own home.
Mm-hmm.
And that's primarily it at the time.
Well, I'm also wondering, this thing, I might have a resonance in how we all produce music too, because before this happened, you want to make a record, you go into a recording studio, you're very careful about stuff, you want to make sure it's the best quality possible, blah, blah, blah. And basically you go on a retail model. But now with gigs shut down and everything, people are hungry for musical content. So maybe, we have this explosion of home studio stuff that's a little bit more raw, not quite as, I'm not flying the flag for mediocrity, but maybe artists are going to allow themselves to be a little more authentic, a little more raw, just to be able to get stuff out to make people happy, rather than go, oh, I don't have my mixer yet, or I don't have this or that.
I think it's a really good point. It reminds me, I was listening to the Howard Stern show the other day, and he, they're all working from home, basically doing their show, essentially like you're doing your show right now. And he had Adam Levine on, and Adam Levine was on Skype or whatever, Zoom or something, and he played a few songs, and it did not sound good, but it was so good because it's so representative of what's going on right now in the world. It's like everybody's kind of living in this thing where it's like you just all of a sudden now accept, like, oh yeah, your internet signal's not so good, you're breaking up on me, and you apply that right to music. You're just like, well, he's stuck in his basement just like we're stuck in our basements. Of course he's not going to sound perfect. And I thought it was fantastic, even though it was kind of choppy and cutting out in and out a little bit and stuff, but it's that's the new world we live in. And I think everybody's a little more accepting of that. The first thing I remember happening when this all went down was the Dropkick Murphys they always play on St. Paddy's Day in Boston. And the first thing I remember seeing of an artist doing something like this was them doing a live show for 0 people. They're on a stage, I think in a club, and they played for 0 people. I mean, tens of thousands on the internet, but 0 in front of them. But they put it on like it was a full-on concert, and it was great. So bands need to get more creative, and fans are, and I think need to be a little more understanding that, hey, maybe this isn't going to sound perfect for the next 2-3 months, while we get this all figured out. But thank you for supporting us,
Yeah.
And kind of as an old rocker, I saw that, I heard that Howard Stern show, and it was amazing because, of course, Sirius wired Howard's house, and it almost sounds like they're still in the Sirius studio. And then
Yeah.
you're right, Adam came on, and it was like, oh my God, what the hell is going on here? You know, it was. But you're right. I don't think anybody who loves Adam Levine really cared. They were just getting, getting the, you know, his wisdom and his songs and all that. And
did he take his shirt off during the broadcast?
well, no, there's no video. Yeah, but
I can do that right now. Hang on a second.
Like, it was awesome because it was okay. And I think for Chad or any musician out there trying to get their music out, you know, it's kind of like you can't say anymore, I don't have the right microphone, I don't have the right workstation, I don't have the right guitar amp, I don't have the right this or right that. It's like, you know what? I think it's just better just put it out there, because I don't think you have to worry about that anymore. You know?
I think this might be a nice,
you know,
this might be a nice reset also for talent.
Yeah.
You know, for people to really go and some, you know, nothing against Adam Levine, but somebody might have went, oh my God, this is what I've liked. And, you know, not that it was a bad, I didn't hear the actual, I didn't hear it, but, you know, somebody might be going, oh, I you know, we might be fooled by a lot of trickery too. So, you know, it might be nice to get another new Rolling Stones group or somebody that's really raw. And, you know, that's the next generation of great bands.
Well, the Wizard is definitely, the curtain has been exposed, and we all know who the Wizard is now, you know? So, but at the same time, I think, like, I saw Chris Jericho, he did a broadcast recently. He's doing this Saturday night special Chris Jericho thing, right? And he was doing, at the end of it, he was doing a sing-along, Don't Stop Believing, and it was just from a polished artist type perspective. It was awful.
Yeah.
But I was laughing my butt off the whole time. And he's just singing this Journey song, and he doesn't have effects. He doesn't have anything to, like, it's just him being him. But, you know, he was smiling, having a good time, and people liked it. And I think one thing that the record label did to kind of, I'm not going to say fool artists, but, like, there's a lot of companies and services out there that kind of sell themselves as necessary, right? So, like, a middleman type situation. So, like, a record label is like, well, we need to develop you as an artist, and we need to, you know, you need us, and because we have all these distribution systems, and you need us because of this and that, you know. And it's kind of like now people are just realizing they either like you as a spirit, as a person, or they don't.
Right.
Like people either like you or they don't. And there, you can't really, there's only so much selling you can do, so much convincing you can do, so much pushing it in front of people. I mean, there's 8 billion people on the planet. Obviously, a lot of them are going to like a lot of us, right? And even the people that nobody likes, there's people that like that. You know, like, there's people that like abrasive, annoying, obnoxious people. Like, the YouTube stars come out doing that stuff all the time, pranking on their girlfriends and stuff, you know, treating people awful on video to try to be funny. You know, like, there's all kinds of people out there in the world. The problem that artists have is that they don't know where those people are. And if they could find them, they wouldn't know if they like their art or not, right? Mm-hmm. And so, like, the job of the artist is finding their people and giving their kind of, not spiel, but like being themselves and being authentic in front of those people. And you're building an audience. Like, this is what I'm doing right here. We're all doing this right now. We're all building an audience. There's people that are going to get off this podcast and be like, yeah, that Chad and Derek guys, man, they were super cool. The Matt guy was annoying. You know, he talked too much over his guests and everything. And then there's going to be somebody else that's like, Matt Gibson's the man. Like, it's so weird. Like, I'm starting to see comments like Matt Gibson's the man on other posts. And I'm not trying to solicit that or anything, but people are liking my authenticity, you know, and it's just like that for any artist. Put yourself out there in front of as many people as you possibly can, and you will find your people.
Yeah.
And that's part of what I'm doing with this broadcast. I mean, honestly, this is mostly what I'm doing with this broadcast, right? But it's fun because authentically, I love talking with artists. I love talking with entrepreneurs. I love hanging out with Mike and the dogs. You know, like this is some of the funnest times that I've had in my entire life.
By the way, thank God.
What's that?
The dogs have not entered the show today.
It's also just a great time to be doing it because A, we all have a lot more time on our hands.
Mm-hmm.
B, you have a locked in audience who also has a lot of time on their hands. And everybody's kind of, even though it's like a scary, stressful time, I think people are for the most part, being a little nicer to each other, like you were talking about. Like everyone's trying to be understanding of different people's situations and things like that. So it's just a really great time. So I think people like you who are doing shows like this, or the bands who are putting on shows online, and stuff, like they really are kind of doing a service, you know, to keep people's spirits up. Because I mean, I know that for me, without, you know, a lot of this, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of, or I watch a lot of things on Twitch and on Facebook. Without those things, I would probably be a little bit more insane right now than I already am, you know?
Yeah. And
kind of the grandpa of the group here too. I'd like to say, and Derek, you probably have something to say because you were actually behind the scenes at two labels. You know, the artist development back in the old days in the 70s, you know, it wasn't always bad. I mean, there were some rough edges that needed to be honed down on people. And even though, you know, with the labels I would work with as an artist, or, you know, you knew they were taking all the money and everything, but their advice wasn't always bad advice. You know, a lot of times their advice was business focused and marketing focused, and how do we get you in front of as many people as possible, because we're interested in, you know, making money off you, and we're interested in promoting you. And, you know, whether you go through the Motown thing, I mean, that was just one whole big cauldron of artist development, which obviously paid off. You know, would those artists be famous anyway? Probably. Would they be as famous? Hard to tell, you know. But sometimes there are artists who need a little bit of a lift. You know, there's too much authenticity, or sometimes you can't get out of your own way.
Right.
You know, sometimes, I mean, I'm sure, Chad, you know, do you kind of assess how people react to you, either live or through Facebook? And do you ever go like, because, you know, I'm a paranoid Italian guy. Do you ever go like, well, maybe I showed off a little too much on these solos, or maybe these songs are a little bit too this or too that? Do you take that into account, or do you just kind of follow your own muse?
Well, I do take that into account. I had they were watching me last night, and they had might have been an 8-year-old daughter watching as well. And sometimes there's a little bit of profanity that I've used. And then I was like, oh, geez, you know, I should probably, you know, dial that back a little, because I always, in a lot of the, I always say it's fun for the whole family. It's low calorie, low carb, and it's fun for the whole family. And, you know, I say those things, and it's a lot of the times it's off the cuff, and then somebody takes that seriously, and they have their 8-year-old daughter watching, and I might have, you know, dropped an F-bomb here or there, not on purpose, but it was, you know, maybe during a story or something. And so I do take those things into effect. I don't let negative criticism affect me in a negative way. I look, you know, I enjoy all criticism, critiquing, because there might be something that I'm missing. And, you know, through any type of critiquing will help, you know, tighten the screws a bit.
Let's get to a couple questions here. I want to acknowledge some people. Let's see. We've got David Koenig, Emery Borgen, Michael Trickell, Shane Mabry. Let's see. Facebook user. Don't know who that is. Bob Tenbusch. And let's see who else we got here. Ed Selden, all watching. Brianna Alexis. She said, Michael.
Hi, Brianna.
Hi, Brianna. And one question that David had, he said, David used to be a bandmate with Chad and Derek. He said, back then we'd play high school assemblies and rent out the town hall or play local parties to gain traction. What opportunities appeal to you both in gaining traction in the current environment? to promote your works or causes to the optimal effect, and how do you cross over your interests between industries? So I would say, Derek, like, now that you're, out of the industry, you're not a musician, like, how is that? Because you have a couple things that probably have helped you in business. Being a poker player is one of them, and working for a record label. Like, how has that translated into your business savviness, so to speak?
I talked to a lot of my old friends who used to work in the music business, and the music business has shrank, at least on that side of things, a lot, and they're all looking for new careers. And they're like, I don't know what to do. And I said, well, do you like craft beer? Because I worked at a brewery before I went and started working with the distillery. The craft beer scene is very much like the independent music scene. It's very, like, all craft brewers are like, they kind of support each other, help each other out. They have, events that are essentially our version of festivals, where we do big beer festivals. It's like going to a music festival, and you kind of promote them all the exact same way. So it's very similar. Obviously, the internet becoming more of a factor changed a lot of things. I don't spend as much time sitting on street corners handing out flyers as I did a long time ago. But I still think it's very similar. Now, the poker world is completely different because you're dealing with people from all over the world, and some of them speak different languages, and it's a little bit different too because you're pretty much trying to take their money. So you're always sort of enemies with everybody, right? So that's a whole different kind of scenario. But yeah, I think there's a lot of things that do definitely translate between the two, for sure.
How about you, Chad? Have you only done music your whole life mostly?
No, I actually work also in the heavy industrial, industrial world. I work at a factory that builds like railroad machinery, heavy machinery.
That's kind of an outlaw country kind of job, though. I mean, that's a lifestyle job in a way.
A little bit. I've worked for the company over the last 20 years, and they've been extraordinary with my pursuit of music, and I've been able to do everything and anything that I've wanted to do in the pursuit of music. They've been very supportive, so I've always been appreciative of that.
How do you think that's helped you as an artist to have that job?
Working 9 to 5 Monday through Thursday, or not 9 to 5, 6 to 4:30 Monday through Thursday, allows me to actually, it humbles me, I would say. To people want and people look for entertainment to break, for the end of the week, for that, they're trying to stretch that dollar. They're trying to get the most that they can out of life. And I feel like, as a musician or as an entertainer, that you try to do your absolute best and you give 110%. So at the end of a work week, these people that come out and support you will feel fulfilled, or get to forget about their problems for a while.
It's fun. It's been back and forth with, even from Steve Vai to you, Chad. It's been interesting to get the perspective because, obviously any artist wants to have some revenue so they're not, baking for hamburgers or whatever. But that there's definitely a difference between people who are in it to make people happy. I know, like you said, you're humbled. These people save their money. They want to have some joy at the end of the week, and you provide it. And I think it's awesome that if you're that type of musician who does want to spread joy rather than just put money in the bank. Not that I don't think money's the root of all evil, and I think that artists should be paid for what they do. But it is kind of a different thing to go out there to encourage and entertain and spread joy than it is to, like, yeah, here's my tip jar. Hey, Mr. Club owner, where's my $550? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Have you ever had to go after a club owner before to get your money?
To get my money? No,
Yeah.
I've had people do it for me. I'm 6'3" and 220 pounds. I can be kind of intimidating, but when it comes to that sense, I've only had it a couple times that's happened to me. And fortunately, in each predicament, I had the right person with me to go and retrieve that.
It'd be like, look, you don't want Chad to come over here and try to get the money, bro. Let's just be gentlemen here, right? So
I'm only 5'6", so I always had to find, I all my drummers were 6'4" and huge, because that was their job. Go get the money. It's not going to be me.
So Derek, somebody was asking and that made me want to know, what is the gold record back there on the wall?
Oh, that is Under Oath, an Under Oath record. They were a band on Tooth and Nail, and I'm trying to remember if they were the first band on the label that went gold. I might have that wrong, but yeah, that's for their Define the Great Line record, which was one of my favorite success stories, because when I came to the label, they were just a small, like, hardcore band, basically playing like basements of VFW halls and stuff.
Nice.
And by the time we were done, they had, sold 500,000 records and were touring stadiums, and it was great.
I actually believe we interviewed a guitar player, had a kind of a youth imprint called Rumble. I think we actually interviewed them for that magazine. Probably.
Oh, cool. Yeah, they're really good guys. I still am in touch with them, and every time they come through town, I always go to the show, and super proud of those guys for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to like see people just trying to go do something and then they do it. It's like, it's such a fulfilling thing, even not only for yourself but for other people, to see other people do it, and it's I really one thing about the show, one of the reasons I do this is because I want artists to know the truth. You know what I mean? Like look, I had I'm gonna join a band with my friends in my garage, and they're gonna hear some record exec's gonna drive by and hear us playing, and he's gonna pull over and he's like, what's that amazing music? Then, like, it's just like, I had that fantasy in my mind, and I carried it through all the way through the military. And then when I decided I wanted to be a musician, I had to get rid of that. I didn't realize that it was a lie, Right. There's a certain amount of truth to it also, that, where you're working hard and you're trying to get out there in front of people. But like, really, it's just a matter, again, it just goes back to how many people know about you. And Grant Cardone, he talks about it all the time. He says, obscurity is your biggest problem. And, like, there are artists that are not commercially viable, like, so to speak, there's a fan base for those people. Yep. Like, you do not have to be as good as Steve Vai to be a successful rock guitarist. You don't have to be as good as Chad Borgen to be. You want to sell them because they like you.
Well, I think that's why, as Chad mentioned earlier, you have to do this to make people happy, because it's all you can do. I'm sure it's no different for Derek with his, distillery and the poker.
Sure.
I mean, and we've had other artists discuss this on the show too, because you never know how many people are going to like you. You never know how charismatic you're going to be to an audience. You never know if that's going to translate into revenue or not. You can be as authentic as hell and still fail. And it used to crack me up, being, kind of a punk rock dickhead, when record companies in the old days would spend massive amounts of money on a band and they would just fail so bad it wasn't even funny. But their names were everywhere. They were on every radio station. The records got played a lot, huge posts, huge billboards, and then just nobody wanted to know. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, obviously I agree that it's kind of it's incumbent on the artist to drive their career. But on the other hand, sometimes it works out for you and sometimes it doesn't. So you better love the journey, because you're not necessarily going to be able to buy a Bentley doing this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's a big part of the key is you have to love it too, because using the musician as an example, if you're not having fun, they're going to notice eventually.
Yeah.
If you hate your job, and your job is playing music, it's not going to go well.
Yeah. But the cool thing about today is you can redefine the job. Like, it used to be like, you got to get on a tour bus with a bunch of people you may or may not like, and you go out on the road, and for, tour for 200 plus days a year. And, you know, after a while, even the pros are just like, this sucks. You know, they're like, this is hard, right?
Yeah.
I haven't seen my family, you know, like, so like today you can kind of reinvent your market. Like it's not the same way. So you could still spend the majority of your time doing something musical. Like even
I think it's a choice too, because Chad, you said, and I think that's great, you know, to be a parent and a dad and go, I'm going to limit my touring opportunities because I want my daughter to be happy and feel like she has a dad. So that's a choice that you made, and I think it was an awesome choice. On the other hand, we had talked to, Joel,
Joel Hoekstra.
Joel what?
Joel Hoekstra from Whitesnake.
Plays with Whitesnake and Cher and Siberian
TSO, yeah.
Orchestra. And he said, you know, he tours like 290 days a year. So, I mean, for him, you know, he can't reinvent it. That's his gig. He's a side person. That's what he had. He's had a brilliant career doing that. But he also said that as terrible as this crisis is for the world, his kids are probably going to think this was the best time ever because dad's home and mom's home and they're a family, you know?
Yeah.
So you know, sometimes you can reinvent, and Matt's big on that, and I respect that because Matt's got, you know, a lot of marketing smarts. But on the other hand, you have to make a choice how you're going to let your career unfold.
And I do want to say too, you know, talking about money, money is not the goal. It's the tool to get to the goal. So like if for me, I'm trying to figure out how can I get in front of as many people as possible to give them a choice to decide if they like me or hate me. Right. Mm-hmm. So like, to me, that's you know, if I had $1 million right now, I would spend all of it on getting known. And then the rest of it will take care of itself, you know? So I'm not looking to like make money for the sake of driving a Bentley. You know, I want people to hear my art. I want to express myself. I want to be in front of people and bless them with my music and find those people and build my tribe of, you know, Kingdom of Rock or, you know, whatever it is, you know, it's like, I want to have that family and have influence over there because I'm trying to make myself a better person and I'm working on it. And I would like to help other people do that, you know? So to me, it's kind of like a charity in a way, like it's a nonprofit kind of thing, you know, where I'm just out there trying to put out goodness into the universe and help people and help as many people as I can, you know, and that's just kind of how I look at it. But
Derek, you might have run into this back in the label days where it always used to crack me up where a band would get in advance and they wouldn't realize that although the label would provide marketing, it probably was smart not to blow all the money on drugs, studio, you know, the big cars, because, you know, it probably would have, the bands that did save some of that money to do their own marketing probably ended up okay, right?
Yeah, it is amazing how many bands don't understand how contracts worked, even though their lawyer or manager probably explained it to them and they signed it. Because, you know, they would think that they'd have all this money coming in, you know, tour support and their advance and all this stuff. And then they would, all of a sudden they would like, well, why aren't we getting royalties? We're selling records. I don't understand what's happening. Well, luckily, you know, the bands who I really developed a close relationship were mostly when I worked at Tooth and Nail, because it was a smaller independent label. And those bands were honestly so busy working and touring and writing and recording, they never really had time to spend their money. You know what I mean? Like, and because it was basically a punk rock and a hardcore label, their sort of image was based around a punk rock lifestyle. You know, it wasn't driving a Bentley or flying in jets, or it was being in a 12-passenger van with 7 guys and, you know, towing a trailer behind it. So luckily most of them did okay in that regard. But there are certainly many, many who did not.
Yeah. Well,
it's
Chad,
like I'm rich.
You know, what do you feel you're projecting ahead to the end of this? What do you feel your most valuable promotion you can do now to help you get your name out when you're ready to gig again?
Well, for right now, it's just the constant content, not to miss a day. not to miss an opportunity to get in front of the, maybe some new faces, and then the people that are currently following me. I have invested some money in ads to try and grow the fan base a bit. And that's right now, that's kind of what I'm concentrating on, is just not to miss any opportunity and to stay focused. I think because we're all at home, we're comfortable. We're like, maybe I might do it today, maybe I won't. I definitely am doing it. Music has always been very important to me. It's been the center point. It connects to everything in my life. So I'm taking this opportunity to focus and make the absolute most that I can off it. Absolute most in meaning not financially, but just connecting with people.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a geeky question, Chad?
Sure.
So I watched one of your videos where you just kind of sat down on your stool and played. I think it was the Hour concert recently.
Okay.
Probably was the Friday concert, I guess. And I mean, your guitar tone is so awesomely rude and everything. How do you get that thing?
Well, I know which one you had. That was with my Teenage Medley in it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
What's the deal, man? How do you keep that thing so just gritty and crazy?
I've been playing. I think a lot of it comes out of my hands. I mean, that's being a guitar player. A lot of the differences that I've always noticed between people was always everyone is playing each other's rigs and stuff, and I would just constantly just sound like myself. But I love Fender Telecasters. I'm actually kind of obsessed with Fender Telecasters, and I like gritty tube amps. I don't know really how to explain how I get my tone, because I honestly think that 90% of it comes from my hands, and 10% comes from the equipment I use.
So what amp do you use what amp did you use for that video?
I'm using I've got a series of Line 6 Flex Tone 3s. And a lot of people they don't like the digital amps, but these ones they were made by Bogner. Bogner designed the amps, and then it had all of the Line 6 features in it, and they were tube, and they're heavy as heck. And I got one just by chance, and I really enjoyed the tones that I was getting out of it, and playing in the outlaw country band that I was playing in, I needed to have a lot of diversity in sounds, and I don't like big pedal boards, so having it all inboard was very important for me, and it was practical. And so I fell in love with these amps, and every time I see one come up on eBay or I see one come up on Reverb, I just buy it up, and I think I have maybe 4 or 5 of them here. And I absolutely love these amps.
What can you get them for? Like, I want to go buy one now. You just convinced me.
I was the last one I bought. I think you can get them for around $400 in nice shape.
So it's cheaper than a Mesa. That's good.
Yeah, and then happened to be about maybe an hour drive from here, and I seen one in the classifieds, and the kid wanted $125 for it, and I was like, there's got to be something wrong with it. Huh. It still had the stickers on it, like it was like brand new. Yeah. I was like, oh my God. So yeah, I mean, you can get them anywhere from $125 to, I think I bought one that was in mint shape as well for around $400, $425, something like that. Yeah.
That's cool.
Well, thanks for that, Chad. Thank you.
We did get a comment on Twitch. We're now streaming live to Twitch today, and Han Slow Roll said Telecasters are the shiznet. So keeping it family safe here.
I love Fender Telecasters. It's the perfect guitar. My brain is wired. I've tried to play. I have Les Pauls. I have Gresh there in the corner. I have all these different guitars, but when I try to play them live, my brain isn't wired to them like it is a Fender Telecaster.
Yeah.
And I mean, Leo got it right from the get-go, you know.
They are great guitarists.
Well, we're a little past our time here, but it was a good conversation, so I don't want to interrupt it. But we're gonna call it a day today. But let's give everybody a quick round the horn, and we'll start with Derek, and then go to Michael, and then we're gonna give Chad the last word.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thanks first of all for having me on. I really enjoyed it, and anytime I can hang out with Chad is awesome. I actually was supposed to go back to Michigan in a couple of months. But I don't know if that's going to happen now. So I was hoping I'd get to see him, but might have to just do it virtually from now on. But yeah, thanks for having me on. And if people want to learn more about the poker side of things, they can hit me up. You mentioned Twitch. I'm on Twitch as well, twitch.tv/killingbird. You can come watch me lose money and drink a few beers on Twitch. So it's a lot of fun.
And where can they find your company? Like your...
Yeah, so tournamentpokeredge.com is my poker company. And then LoneRiderSpirits.com is our distillery. We only distribute to North Carolina right now. So for anybody who's not in North Carolina, I'm sorry, but hopefully we'll get to you guys soon too. So that's kind of where all my spread out interests are.
Maybe we can, since everything's shut down, maybe we can get some horses, like kind of the Pony Express started back up, and
there we go.
Get that going.
Hey, go to the railways.
Right.
Yeah, me and Chad could team up.
Yeah.
Get the trains.
Oh, that's cool, man. Have them like pulling a wagon and Chad's like rocking out with a telly on the back, dude. That would be awesome. I'd pay for that. All right, Mike, what you got?
Well, I just wanted to thank Derek and Chad. Great conversation, you guys. Thanks so much for being on the Kingdom of Rock. I just have one question. Whose signatures are on the telly behind you, Chad?
Whose signatures are on the telly?
Yeah, an autographed telly there. Am I seeing that right?
This one?
Yeah.
This is my main Telecaster that I used to play out live. Those are just squiggles.
Oh, okay. Very nice.
My girl Pammy.
Oh, nice.
Dude, I love the beard on there. That's cool, man. So,
Chad, take us home.
Yeah, take us home, Chad.
Well, thank you guys for having me on. I absolutely love this. I was glad I was included on it. I was glad to see my brother, Derek. And if you want to check out anything that I'm doing, you can go to chadborgen.com. And all my social media outlets are linked there. And we have right on the main page, there are 3 free songs to stream. And once we get past all this COVID-19 pandemic and life gets to somewhat normal again, you can go on there and see where we're playing, and hopefully we'll be playing in your area.
And you guys can argue with me if you don't think that Chad has one of the badassest guitar tones ever. Just get me on my website and tell me I'm full of crap, or just say Chad's a god, and we'll take that there.
Thank you.
And that's the final word on that today. So. And I just wanted to close, I'll be brief. We are having tomorrow our first kind of, last week I did this like with about 4 hours notice. So I'm going to call this our first meetup for the Kingdom of Rock community from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We're going to open up a Zoom room and give everybody a chance to just kind of network and hang out. If you're a show guest and you've been on the show before, or you're scheduled to be on the show, we have a meetup from 1 to 2 right before then for just show guests. So kind of networking, and we're gonna talk about what we can come up with to solve some of the problems in the music industry, like how do we get the distribution system back in the hands of artists, for music and things like that. Now's a good time to all get together and try to solve some problems. So hopefully we can do that. So be sure to check us out tomorrow, kingdomofrock.com. I'm Matt Gibson, Michael Molenda, Chad Borgen, Derek Tenbusch. Kingdom of Rock out.
Cheers, guys.
Take care, everybody.